Welcome back, everyone. We're diving into some seriously interesting stuff today. And I have to say, it's a bit mind-boggling.
Oh, yeah.
Yeah, like even in this day and age, with all our science and tech, people still believe in some pretty well out there things.
You're talking about all those weird beliefs.
Exactly. And we're going to figure out why, using Michael Shermer's book, why people believe weird things as our guide.
Shermer. Love his work. Always gets you thinking.
Right. So by the end of this deep dive, you'll know why people believe the unbelievable.
Sounds good.
But even better, you'll have the tools to think more critically yourself.
Okay, I'm in. Let's get skeptical.
Shermer doesn't just dismiss these beliefs as foolish, though. He actually digs into the psychology behind them.
He does. And it's fascinating stuff, really.
He even talks about that time Oprah had a psychic guest, Rosemary Altia.
Oh, yeah, I remember that episode.
I was watching it like, whoa, is she really talking to the dead?
A lot of people were convinced.
But then, Shermer, who was also on the show, explained how Altia might have used cold reading.
Cold reading. Classic technique. It's about making those vague statements that could apply to almost anyone.
And people fill in the blanks with their own experiences.
Exactly. And suddenly, it seems like the psychic has special powers.
So it's not necessarily intentional deception.
Right. Altia might have even believed it herself. The power of suggestion is strong.
It makes you wonder, like, if it works, it works, right?
To a certain extent, I suppose.
Then there's James Van Praagh, another famous psychic. Shermer worked with unsolved mysteries to test his claims.
Ooh, that's a good one. What happened?
Let's just say the results were pretty revealing.
Not surprising. To be honest, a lot of these psychics use similar tricks.
Like focusing on common causes of death.
Yep. Heart attacks, cancer.
And subtly gathering information during breaks.
Right, they'll chat with the audience, pick up on little details, then use that later in their reading.
Van Praagh even used a piece of jewelry to seemingly know a deceased person's name.
Clever, but not exactly supernatural.
The crazy thing is, even after the debunking, most people still wanted to believe him.
That's the human element right there. We crave certainty, especially when it comes to loss and grief.
We want that connection to our loved ones.
Who wouldn't?
It's not always about logic, is it? It's about emotion.
Exactly. And that's where Shermer brings in this idea of a belief engine.
Okay, belief engine. What's that all about?
It's like this built-in system in our brains that drives us to find patterns.
Patterns, like everywhere.
Pretty much. We look for meaning, even where there might not be any.
So it's like our brains are constantly trying to connect the dots.
Exactly. And sometimes we force those connections, even if the dots are totally random.
But doesn't that make us all prone to believing weird things?
Not necessarily. It's like a powerful tool, this belief engine.
Yeah.
But like any tool, it can be misused or, malfunction.
So sometimes it leads us down the wrong path.
You could say that. It can misinterpret information, see patterns that aren't really there, and, well, lead us to believe things that just aren't true.
Okay, now I'm really curious. How do we debug this system, then?
That's the big question. That's what we'll get into next. Stay tuned.
I can't wait. This is already blowing my mind.
Get ready for more. It's going to get even weirder.
Bring it on.
You got it.
All right, so where were we? Oh yeah, debugging our belief engines.
Right. Got to be careful not to let those glitches lead us astray.
Okay, I'm ready for more. Hit me with those last two fallacies.
All right, fallacy number 18 is hasty generalization. Basically, it's jumping to conclusions without enough evidence.
Hasty generalization. Sounds kind of familiar, actually.
I'm sure we've all been there. Human nature, really.
Yeah, like judging a whole group of people based on like one bad experience.
Exactly. Or let's say you see a news story about a crime.
Yeah.
And the suspect is from a certain background.
And you start thinking, oh, all people from that background must be criminals.
Right. That's a hasty generalization.
Right.
We're making a sweeping judgment based on a single data point.
Makes sense.
Yeah.
So how do we avoid doing that?
It's about being aware of those biases, those mental shortcuts our brains take.
So pause and think before jumping to conclusions.
Exactly. Ask yourself, do I really have enough information here?
Is there another way to look at this?
Am I letting my emotions cloud my judgment?
Okay, good advice. What about that last fallacy, number 19?
This one is a biggie. Over-reliance on authorities.
Ooh, that sounds like a slippery slope.
It can be. We tend to give too much weight to the opinions of experts.
Yeah, because they're experts, right?
Sure, expertise is important, but experts are human too.
They can make mistakes.
Of course. They have biases, just like everyone else.
And sometimes their expertise might be in one very specific area.
Exactly. So just because someone's an expert in, say, physics, doesn't mean they know everything about, history or economics.
So we got to be careful about blindly accepting what experts say.
Absolutely. It's about questioning, even when it comes from authority figures.
Respectfully, of course.
Of course, but always critically evaluating the evidence.
That's a good reminder for sure. So we've covered all 19 fallacies now.
Yep, we've gone through the whole list.
It's amazing how many ways our brains can trick us, right?
It is fascinating and a little humbling, too.
For sure. But hey, now we've got this awesome toolkit for critical thinking.
Exactly. We're better equipped to spot those thinking traps and avoid those weird beliefs.
But this isn't just about, like, UFOs and psychics, right?
Right. These fallacies pop up everywhere. In politics, relationships, everyday life.
So it's about applying these skills to all areas of our lives.
Exactly. It's about developing a more critical way of thinking in general.
And that's a good thing, right?
Absolutely. It helps us make better decisions, understand the world more clearly.
So how do we put this knowledge into action?
That's the key question, isn't it? It's about being mindful, catching ourselves when we're falling into those traps.
Like being our own mental referees.
I like that analogy. Blowing the whistle on those faulty thought patterns.
And always asking for evidence.
Yes. Evidence, evidence, evidence.
Don't just take things at face value.
Especially if it sounds too good to be true or just plain outlandish.
Be skeptical, but not cynical.
Right. That's the sweet spot. We're not trying to tear down everything people believe in.
We're just encouraging them to examine those beliefs a little more closely.
With a critical eye and an open mind.
And maybe even a sense of humor, right?
Oh, absolutely. Don't forget the humor.
Because let's face it, some of these weird beliefs are pretty entertaining.
They are. But hey, even if we find ourselves chuckling, it's important to remember these beliefs can have real-world consequences.
So we got to take this seriously, too.
To a certain extent, yeah. It's not about judging individuals, but about recognizing the potential harm of misinformation.
That's a good point. This is getting pretty deep.
It is. But it's important stuff. It's about how we think, how we make decisions, how we understand the world around us.
And ultimately, it's about how we live our lives.
Exactly. So what are your thoughts?
Honestly, I'm feeling a little overwhelmed, but also kind of empowered. Like, I've got this new superpower now.
That's a great way to put it. You've got the power of critical thinking.
And I can use it to, like, fight against those mental gremlins.
You got it. Those fallacies, those biases,
Yeah.
they're lurking everywhere.
But now we know how to spot them.
And how to challenge them.
So what's next? What do we do with all this knowledge?
That's where you, the listener, come in.
So where do we go from here? How do we use all this knowledge about fallacies and critical thinking?
Well, it's like we've been given this mental magnifying glass, right?
Yeah.
To examine not just those weird beliefs, but all kinds of information.
Yeah, it's like we've learned to adjust the focus, see those little distortions and biases that sneak in.
Exactly. And the best part is, yeah, it doesn't turn us into cynical, joyless robots. We can still appreciate the mystery and wonder of the world.
Right, but with a more discerning eye.
Absolutely. Imagine being a kid again, fascinated by a magic show.
Oh, I love magic shows.
You're amazed by the illusions, but now you have a sense of how those tricks might be done. Doesn't ruin the magic, just adds another layer of appreciation.
That's such a good analogy. We can still enjoy the show, but we're not just passively accepting everything we see.
Right. You're engaged, you're questioning, you're thinking for yourself.
It's a powerful place to be, especially now when we're bombarded with information everywhere we turn.
It can feel overwhelming, that's for sure.
It does, trying to figure out what's true, what's misleading, what's just made up.
That's where those critical thinking tools come in.
They help us navigate it all.
Like a map and compass guiding us through the wilderness.
I like that. It's not a one-time journey either, right?
Nope, it's an ongoing exploration. Always learning, refining our understanding, open to new perspectives.
That's what I love about it. It's not about arriving at some fixed destination.
It's the process, the journey of discovery.
Exactly. And it's not a solo mission, is it?
Definitely not. We can all learn from each other, share our insights, challenge each other to think more critically.
So it's like an invitation to join this community of skeptical explorers, all trying to make sense of the world together.
I like that. We're all in this together, right? Trying to navigate those complexities, make sense of the information overload.
It's a bit like we've been given this giant puzzle to solve. Trying to put the pieces together, you know?
Using logic, evidence, and a healthy dose of skepticism.
And who knows what amazing discoveries we might make along the way.
Exactly. So as we wrap up this deep dive, Keep those skeptical minds engaged.
Questioning isn't about disrespect, right?
Not at all. It's about intellectual curiosity, commitment to truth.
So go out there, explore, question, and never stop learning.
And thanks for joining us on this deep dive.
See you next time.